What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. And this time we're taking a look at Wonder Woman, the fourth installment into the DCEU and overall Synderverse. This movie is directed by Patty Jenkins. Let's waste no time. Let's talk about it. Overall, when I first saw Wonder Woman, I thought the movie was good, but extremely overrated. Now that it's 2023, and looking back at it in hindsight, my thoughts on it are still the same. I still think that Wonder Woman was grossly overrated upon its first release, but as I watch it again, I still find this to be a very solid and good movie and a really good start to Wonder Woman as a film franchise. Now, when you also look at Wonder Woman 84 and where they went to in the sequel, yeah, it kind of makes this movie look like a flash in a pan and just a lightning in the bottle type of success. Now, with all that aside, let's look at how Wonder Woman is at just being a regular movie. It's good. Like, it's really good. I mean, it's not the perfect movie you'll ever see, but it's a movie that has what the Synderverse always lacked from Man of Steel and BVS: heart. This movie feels like people who made it wanted to make it. Unlike Zack Snyder's movies, where he just wanted to make grim superheroes do violent things, Wonder Woman actually feels like an optimistic, hopeful movie, which is what the Synderverse should have been from the get-go. Listen. Nobody's against having superheroes take on having been put in these grim situations. Just don't make the heroes reflect those grim situations. They're supposed to be the exact opposite of those grim situations. Putting Superman in a grim situation is not bad, but having him be the eternal optimist in that grim situation and having the power to persevere, that's what makes him endearing. The same with Batman. Batman has always been a pessimist. Putting him in a grim situation can help him find that ounce of optimism that he sometimes will show and sometimes won't show, all depending on who writes him. But the point of this little mini rant before I start the review is this: no one is against putting superheroes in grim situations. Just don't change their personalities because you want to. Wonder Woman is a movie that has a somber tone, but also has an optimistic feel to it. And a lot of that is because Wonder Woman is a symbol of virtue. You know, Superman is a symbol of hope. Wonder Woman is a symbol of virtue. And once again hammers the point that there is good in this world if they have something to look up to, and if somebody of a higher stature believes in them enough to support them. That's Wonder Woman. And I overall thought that the movie did a decent job at conveying that message. And if the DCEU from Jump Street pretty much had a movie like Wonder Woman in the way it was constructed as its starting point with Superman, then the Synderverse would still be going on to this day, or the DCEU would still be going on to this day, instead of constantly facing soft reboots and reconstructions because the whole universe is a giant cluster. All right, so with that rant out of the way, let's finally talk about Wonder Woman. Like I said, my overall thoughts on this movie haven't really changed much from when I first saw it. I do appreciate it more, especially since other female-led superheroes came out after this movie, and I did not particularly care for those. I'm looking at you, Black Widow and Captain Marvel. Wonder Woman is that superhero movie with a female lead, where the female lead doesn't hammer the point home that she's a woman or that she's this or that she's that. She just comes across as a genuine good person who wants to do good and is trying to save the world, but has to realize that she can't save everyone. And that's Wonder Woman. That's Wonder Woman's story. And the movie, like I said, the movie constructed that very well. Now, I ain't the world's biggest Gal Gadot fan. I don't really care for her in the role of Wonder Woman. And this movie didn't really sway my mind on that. Though I will say this: she does have Chris Pine to work off of, and Chris Pine as Steve Trevor I thought was really good. And he and Gadot do have genuine good chemistry on screen together. In my opinion, when Gal Gadot is sharing screen time with Chris Pine, she actually will show that charisma and that genuine naivety. When she's not on screen with Chris Pine, I find her to be relatively bland, really boring, not really memorable. The only thing memorable about Gal Gadot's performance as Wonder Woman in whole is her action sequences. In terms of her acting abilities, she's blander than wet paint. I'm sorry. Just because you're a good-looking woman, that does not mean you have talent in the acting department. And I'm sorry, I just don't buy her as Wonder Woman. Again, her action sequences are good, but she never comes across as Wonder Woman, because she always has that same just deer in the headlights look. And when she tries to act tough, you can tell that she's faking it. To this day, I wish an actress like a Jamie Alexander from the Thor franchise was Wonder Woman, because she has that presence to pull it off. So yeah, my view on Gal Gadot will always be mixed when it comes to Wonder Woman. There's stuff that I do like about her and stuff that I just don't care about her. She's always been a mixed bag of an actress. I never found her to be good. Chris Pine, on the other hand, I've always liked Chris Pine. I like him I am not a big Star Trek fan, but the Star Trek reboot series that he's in, I enjoyed those movies, and I liked him as Captain Kirk. He brings a charming charisma to those roles, and same thing applies to Steve Trevor. He did a really good job playing Steve Trevor. Brings that charming charisma to this role, and he's just extremely likable. The supporting cast around him includes veteran actors like Robin Wright and Colleen Nielsen, I believe, along with Danny Huston and David Thewlis. They all fill their roles in really, really well. David Thewlis plays this character called Patrick Morgan, who's actually Ares in disguise. Now, I had ranted about how I did not like, about how I thought David Thewlis playing Ares was a miscast, and I still stand by that. I really do. I mean, Thewlis, he's doing his best to sell the character, and he's really giving it his own, the performance. But he just does not have that physical stature to play the God of War. Like, I think someone like a Danny Huston should have been. I think someone like a Danny Huston should have been Ares, because Danny Huston has more of a commanding presence to him, and he just has more of a, like, you can feel that Danny Huston has the power to play a God of War like Ares. Listen, I'll never take away from David Thewlis' performance in this movie, because I really do think he did a really good job with it for what he was given, and he tried to make it work. I just can't buy him because he doesn't have that God of War like stature. Like my thoughts on Ares, how the portrayal of Ares in this film will always be a mixed bag. I mean, I like the idea of Ares being in disguise of a British general, he's not creating these wars, but he's helping to influence these wars by putting ideas into people's heads. That's awesome. That's a great idea. I love it, and the movie executed it really, really well. I like how, and I also like the character. I also like this character of Dr. Poison, played by what's her name? Elena Anya. You know, the character of Dr. Poison is actually a really cool character who I thought was kind of underutilized in a lot of scenes. She creates like the movie pretty much makes her the cause of creating the mustard gas and creating this pheromone that can give you superhuman strength, which is a nice little prototype for what would be known as the Venom serum in the DC world. But of course, we'll never know if that was a thing, but that's the fan theory running around. Yeah, I thought Dr. Poison was an interesting character who could be more expanded upon. I actually liked the whole thing of her and General Ludendorff, played by Danny Huston, being in cahoots. Speaking of which, even though I would have put Danny Huston as Ares, the God of War, I do like Danny Huston in this movie as a German general. I thought he played the role really, really well. And when you watch him as General Ludendorff, it just hammers the point that maybe they should have just had Huston play Ares and have Ares in the guise of Ludendorff, and have Patrick Morgan just be his own separate thing, not connected to Ares at all, or have any of that misdirection. I think the film would have worked better that way. That's just me personally. The other supporting cast also includes Steve Trevor's team, and I like every member of Steve Trevor's team. I enjoyed it. They all have nice bantering with one another. They all have a unique, particular set of skills, no pun intended, and they all fill out their roles really, really well. In terms of the overall production value of this movie, this is a beautifully shot movie. The cinematography is bright and colorful. Yes, there's color in a modern DC movie. Who'd have thunk it? You know, it's okay to make live action comic book movies feel like comic book movies and not be so dark, grim, and murky where you can't see a thing. Talking at you, Zack Snyder, you're a good visual artist, but your cinematography can sometimes be shits. Take some cues, add some color. It works. Instead of that just washed out, boring color palette look that you love to use so much. This movie's bright. This movie's colorful. It looks beautiful. It's a beautifully shot movie from a cinematography standpoint. None of that. I really love the look of Themyscira Paradise Island. It has this very just regal look and feel to it. I like the whole thing with the Amazons. It looks nice. Bridget Nelson and Robin Wright, they play Wonder Woman's mom and Wonder Woman's aunt respectively, and I thought they filled their roles really, really well. Like, they have good commanding presence. Not only that, they're two accomplished actresses, so they bring that sense of authority to these roles, but also a sense of warmth to these roles. And they all have a very specific relationship with Diana, and it plays out. And they both help shape her into what she would eventually become, which is Wonder Woman. The Amazon Queen, instills her royal values to Diana, while her aunt instills her warrior skills to Diana. So it's the complete package. I like it. I thought all that stuff was handled really, really well. I like the little action sequence that takes place on Themyscira when Steve first crash lands and the Germans and the Amazons have a little fight, have some gunplay. Unfortunately, Wonder Woman's aunt is killed in the crossfire, and so are a couple of Amazons. I like that whole scene. Like I said, I like the stuff with Steve and Diana trekking from Themyscira to England and then to Germany or Belgium in order to stop the Germans. That's where their relationship really, really forms, starts to take shape, and that's where Godot's chemistry with Chris Pine really starts to shine. And I can buy the romance a little bit. So I thought all that stuff was handled fairly, fairly well. Now, in terms of this movie's story and its structure, if you watch Captain America: The First Avenger back to back with Wonder Woman takes the same beats of the First Avenger. Now, is that a bad thing? No. Does that make the story derivative and Wonder Woman kind of predictable in a way? Yeah, it does. It does. And does that hurt the movie? It depends on your perspective. I don't think taking from the First Avenger hurts Wonder Woman at all, but it does, it does hamper it a little bit. But but to the credit of the writers and Patty Jenkins, they took the First Avenger structure and they reworked it to be a Wonder Woman story, and for the most part it worked. Having this whole thing take place during the backdrop of World War I, I like it. I mean, yes, again, it's like First Avenger, because First Avenger took place during World War II, so it is what it is. But it worked, and it plays into Diana having to see the horrors of World War I and then walk away from humanity. Why Wonder Woman 84 retconned this whole thing, I will never know, and I don't really care to know because I don't give a fuck. Because 84 was a bad movie anyway. But yeah, I mean, having the same structure of the First Avenger can be hit or miss. But it's all in how Wonder Woman told the story, and I thought it told its story really, really well. Like, the first two acts of this movie are extremely strong. Where this movie kind of falters is the third act. Like I said, the whole reveal of Sir Patrick Morgan being Ares was good, and his whole thing to just bring war and chaos is what the God of War does. But Diana using the power of love in order to stop him, and it just breaking down into just a CGI slugfest, yeah, it kind of takes a lot of the dramatic weight around. The ideologies between Wonder Woman and Ares is interesting, but I think the way it was executed was very sloppy. Like, more or less, Wonder Woman's whole thing is the power of love will prevail. That is so hokey, that is so cheesy. I mean, you didn't really need that. To be honest with you didn't really need that. I mean, the fight between Ares and Wonder Woman is very entertaining, and I like how it all takes place at Ludenhorn's base with Steve Trevor making the sacrifice to stop the mustard gas from getting into the world. I like all that stuff. I like the ending. I like how the ending is very somber yet still optimistic all at the same time. I'm talking about the last few minutes. And I like how this story is framed as Diana, pretty much going back in time in her mind and reliving all the events from when she was a child all the way up to Steve's death. I like the framework of how it takes place in the present, but everything is told to us through flashback. I enjoyed that. I like it. It's just a little thing that I enjoyed. We get to see Diana's story and what led to her walking away from humanity. So yeah, that's pretty much really all I got to say about Wonder Woman. It's really not a bad movie. It's solid. It's good. I mean, like I said, my thoughts on it haven't really changed much. If anything, I have a newfound appreciation for it. I like the fact that this movie is what the DCEU should have been from the start, but ultimately was not. But as its own standalone thing, it's a really good introduction to Wonder Woman for those who are not fans. It takes a lot of inspiration from her modern day comics, in which she's a descendant of Zeus, the Greek god of Zeus, and it plays into a lot of Greek mythology, which is what I like, because I'm half Greek myself. So seeing that is actually pretty cool, and working it into comic book lore is also pretty cool as well. So I like all that stuff. So yeah, this re-review, like I said, this re-review hasn't really changed my mind overly on Wonder Woman, but I do have a newfound appreciation for it, which is why I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I originally gave it a 7 out of 10, mainly because I thought that I was really too harsh on it. But the more I let this movie process, it's truly good. And when you compare it to what came after it, an 8 out of 10 is very deserving, because Captain Marvel and Black Widow, those movies are just not that good. And when you put them against Wonder Woman, this is a better movie because it's constructed better, and the heroine is much more likable and more relatable when you look at it. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for Wonder Woman. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.